welcome back to another episode of the Wet Dreamz Podcast. New season, same people. So we wanted to switch it up this season. I wanted to switch it up. This is probably the first time you're hearing about it because I'm just doing things. But I wanted to switch it up. So we're gonna have some mini seasons. So each mini season is gonna be like 5 episodes, and each of those seasons is gonna have like a theme to it. You know what I mean? So this first theme, I thought we would start out guns blazing with the most like crazy if you will. I don't know. So the theme for these 5 episodes are cheating and infidelity.
Okay.
So, you know, the things we have in store is like questions like, is porn cheating? That'll be this episode. But the next episode will be, can sexual fantasies lead to cheating? Third episode will be other problematic sexual behavior outside of pornography, but just the actual sexual behavior, and is that cheating? Episode 4 will be healing after infidelity, and then episode 5 will be getting laid again after infidelity, which is a crude way to say it, but hopefully that gets clicks. No. I'm your host, Jose Gonzalez, and this is...
I'm Dr. Brad Hinman. I'm a licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and nationally certified sex therapist.
Perfect. So today we're talking about pornography and cheating, and I know this is a question that comes up a lot with our guys and their partners, you know, and I've found a variety of like views on that or whatever, but what have you seen as far as the partners? Do most partners consider pornography cheating or not? What do you think?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, is viewing pornography cheating? I was going to say it depends on who you ask. That was going to be my answer. And so the person viewing the pornography generally doesn't consider it cheating, but the person, their partner, does. Roughly about 3 out of every 4. Research tells us that 74% of partners label that as cheating, infidelity. And so there's a lot of complicating factors to that. Like, I think part of it is you're engaging in a sort of sexual behavior with this person. And so, and a lot of the partners of guys who look at a lot of porn, the partner wants to have sex with them more often than what they actually are having sex. And so you're taking sexual energy away from the relationship and putting it into pornography. And so I think that's part of the reason why partners consider it cheating. But also there's just this huge discrepancy between the way men conceptualize pornography and the way women conceptualize pornography.
Right. So let's back up a bit, because the beginning of that conversation as well, I think, is like, what do men and women, how do they view what is pornography in the first place? Like, have you seen that difference? Like, with I mean, whether that's content, the type of content, whether that's what you're actually doing online, or whether that whatever, you know what I mean? Like, what have you seen there? Because I know I've seen definitely different things, but
all of the above is true, right? Like, I think that men in a heterosexual relationship, male female, men look at pornography more as entertainment, like watching movies or playing video games. They kind of put porn in that category. I'm doing this for entertainment. I'm doing it because it's fun and it feels good. Where women, their female partners would tend to consider that more cheating because they're, like I said, they're putting their sexual energy into this inanimate object, and you're not sharing that with me, right? And then, as an added complication, women look at what's going on in porn, and they're like, my body doesn't look like that. I don't do those things. And so obviously you want somebody who does do those things, right? So they look at it, the female partners of men who look at a lot of porn, they're looking at that and saying, well, this is what you want. Like you're shopping for a new partner because I don't do those things and I don't look like this. And so you obviously want those types of people. And the men who look at porn, the vast majority, the overwhelming, probably over 90% of the guys that I've worked with, they want to stay in their relationship. They're happy in their relationship. So this, in their mind, this doesn't have anything to do with the quality of our relationship. It's just entertainment, right? It's just like they're just watching a movie.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like, it comes back to that stereotypical, kind of men tend to be able to compartmentalize versus for women, it's stereotypically tends to be more connected. I feel like men are able to separate that from like, oh, that's porn is just something else that's not connected to my relationship or is not connected to maybe what I actually want sometimes, you know what I mean? Whereas that's just different for women, it seems like, Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because they have such disparate views on what pornography is and what it's for, they can't like bring that together. Like they're not, they can't even communicate about it because they're coming from two different places.
Right.
One is looking at the other saying, how can you think that? And then the other person's saying the exact same thing, right?
Right. They're like Mars and Venus, whatever.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Men are from Mars thing.
Yes.
So typically then the guys that come into our office, and maybe, I mean, it might be different than the typical guy as well. But anyways, typically guys, what do you think they see pornography as? I mean, you kind of said some, but reiterate, for them it's entertainment. For them is, what else? Just getting off, I guess, in some ways. What else when they see it, when they come in? Yeah,
it's a stress reliever, right? Like it's there, because again, when we do research on this topic, we're finding out that they're doing it because they're lonely, or they're not feeling affirmed in their relationship. So it's a stress reliever, it's a boredom reducer, right? They're and notice I'm not saying they're doing it because they're horny, right? They're not doing it because they need a release. That's not what they're telling us, right? They're telling us that I do this. A lot of guys say I do it to help me fall asleep, or I do it in the morning when I have to wake up, right? Like it's, they're just like entertainment, right? Like when you watch the Avengers movie or something, right? You're doing that for entertainment. You're not doing it because you want to be a superhero, right? Well, maybe we do, but
deep down, we all want to be a superhero.
But you don't think, oh, I can, if I watch Spider-Man, then webs are going to fly out of my hands. Like you're doing it to be entertained, but unfortunately, your partner doesn't think of it that way, and it can be very hurtful for partners,
right? Right. So partners then look at it as, a deficiency in myself, or like, maybe that's probably something you want and I can't give you, or excuse me, like, well, what's wrong with me kind of deal, or why are you viewing pornography and I'm right there? That must mean you don't want to have sex with me or whatever. Right. So whatever, some other,
Yep. All of that. Yep, we hear it all.
Definitely. Like, when in the male's mind, it's has nothing to do with that,
right? Right. And men are very confused when their partner says that to them, because that's not what they're thinking, and that's not the way they conceptualize it, right? That's not the way they make sense of it in their head, and so when their partner says that, they're just like, "What are you talking about?" Right? Like this? No, that's not true, but the partner has already convince themselves that is what's happening, right? You do want to cheat on me. You do want a partner who looks like that and acts like that, but the men tell us that that's not what they're after.
Well, and I find that it's interesting because I find often this statement, the guys that come in will say like, that's not what I believe. I don't want those things. I don't want, I'm attracted to my partner, but then how do I convince her of that? I find that statement all the time of like, how can I tell her that what she's saying is not true or whatever, you know, how do I convince her that I don't want those things, you know? So there's that tug of war of like, well, of course you want those things. Why would you do it if you didn't want those things? But on the flip side, it's like, I don't want those things, but how can I convince you that I don't want those things? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that is part of, not to mention if they've broken trust in the relationship, then of course their partner's not believing much of what they're saying, especially early on, you know?
Yeah, because that brings up another good point that, you know, when guys are typically caught looking at porn, because a lot of times they do it in secret, right? So their partner doesn't know. You know, when they're looking at it and masturbating, and then so when they're caught through various means, then they're like, oh no, I'll never do this again. I'm sorry, right? It's just a one-time thing. That's the only time I've ever looked at it, right? And I'm never going to do it again because I'm sorry that I hurt you. And then they do it again. And so now it's bad enough in their partner's mind. It's bad enough that you did this now twice, probably more than twice.
Right.
But you got caught twice, but you lied to me as well. And partners are telling us that the act of betrayal is bad enough, but the lying is worse. Right. So I'm never going to do this again. And then you do it again. That is what's most damaging to relationships.
Right. Well, and you can't blame the partners. That feels like cheating, you know, on this question, is porn cheating? Like, we'll talk about that towards the end, but of course that feels like cheating. You've done something and then you've hidden it, you know, on top of that. Yeah, like,
which is what you do when you're cheating, right? Like you do it and then you lie about it and you hide it, and then when you get caught, you lie about it some more. And so it feels like cheating, right? And also because it's a sexual thing that you're doing, right? Like I always, you know, use the illustration of like, if it were alcohol, you wouldn't. If your partner was drinking alcohol in secret, you wouldn't say that that's cheating. But because it's a sexual activity, then that's where the idea of cheating comes up, right? That you're doing a sexual activity without my knowledge or consent, and you're hiding it and you're lying about it.
Right, exactly. So what makes that different then? What's the difference? You know, we'll get to that. Let's back up, because that's gonna be the question at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. What are some other, anything else that partners typically will say as far as porn specifically, like how they view porn, how the partners of our guys that come in?
There are some couples where it's not necessarily the act of viewing porn that's the problem. Like I said, it's the lying about it, right? Because I've had some people say, I don't care if he looks at porn. He just needs to tell me. Well, how often is a guy going to be like, okay, I'm gonna go look at porn. I'm going to be gone for about 40 minutes. So
give me your heads up.
Entertain yourself while I'm gone. Right? So that feels just very awkward because we're acculturated from the very beginning to hide our sexuality, right? Like, you know, nobody can see your genitals, right? Keep those hidden. And so we're just acculturated that this should be a private activity. And so guys don't want to really announce that.
Right.
And so there's that. Like I have run across couples, and not seldom that I run across couples where they're like, I don't care. He just needs to be honest, right?
Well, and even after the fact, you talked about, you know, being socialized to not share, like, oh, I'm gonna go use porn. And then even after the fact, it's just as hard for guys to share that they have used or whatever, because they know that it's going to hurt their partner. They know that what that conversation is going to feel like or look like or whatever. You know what I mean? So on bookends of the porn is like hard conversations.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Admitting that I looked at porn is going to hurt my partner, and lying about it's going to hurt my partner. So they choose lying about it because they're putting the hurt on layaway. Right? They're making payments on it.
Yeah, is layaway still a thing? I wonder if it
is. They're just kicking the can down the road. They're delaying the pain.
Exactly.
Right? Do I hurt her now or later?
Always later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then the other issue, you said the lying, but then also I think the taking away the sexual energy. I've heard that often, like the whole, like, you know, I don't care necessarily if they watch porn. I just care that they're not having sex with me as much, or they're not showing me that energy as much, and I would like that to be more, you know, and then so in that way it's connected, because then the guys are expending that energy elsewhere or whatever.
Sex is one of the ways couples show that they love each other, right? It's physical touch, much like holding hands or kissing, you know. So the sexual act falls into the category of physical touch, and if you are expending that sexual energy, which the definition of that would be you're ejaculating, right? If you're expending that sexual energy with yourself and not with your partner, then that means you're not touching your partner as much as you were or would be without looking at porn. You're not holding them and caressing them and, you know, touching each other as much. And so your partner is going to feel less loved as a result of that. And so that, like you, that's what the complaint is that we hear, right? He's not touching me as much. He's not holding me. And we're not having as much sex, because that's kind of a barometer. I refer to it like as the blood pressure. Like every time you go to the doctor, doctor takes your blood pressure. And so like the frequency of sex is the blood pressure of a relationship. It's not necessarily the only indicator. It is not the only indicator, right? But it is one indicator, especially if one wants sex more than what's happening. Right. That discrepancy can lead to relationship problems.
Yeah, I like that. The blood pressure, for sure. Yeah. So well, and you know, that gets into all the shame kind of stuff where when guys do use, then they're more withdrawn or they're more feeling bad or whatever. So then they're not giving that energy to their partners or whatever. And partners know. I mean, they have said that. They come in and say that. Like, I can tell almost like scary accurately that you've used today or whatever. You know, even if the guy doesn't necessarily think that he's giving off whatever vibe. You know, the partners know. You know?
Yeah, well, they can tell because it's often after the guy uses, especially if he's promised that he's not going to use anymore, then he feels guilt and shame, right? And so that guilt and shame is hard to hide from a partner who knows you really well, because it changes the way you act and interact with your partner, right? Because you're trying to hide the fact that you use porn and masturbated, but you're also trying to hide the fact that you feel guilt and shame. And then because men are experts at being angry, so then we get angry, right?
Right. That's the first thing that comes on.
Yeah. And so then the partner's like, well, why is my partner angry when we didn't really do anything that would cause him to be angry? So then that they're picking up on these differences, these changes in behavior.
Definitely. Yeah. So, is porn cheating?
It depends on who you ask. And so, but what I do tell the couples is, if your partner considers it cheating, then it's probably cheating, right? Because if turn the tables, right? Like if your female partner is talking to another guy at work, and you know, see, your face just changed. If your female partner is talking to another guy at work, and he's helping her change her tire, and he's you know he's you know going for long walks with her on her lunch hour or whatever, like is that cheating? Right? Like, I didn't say they're having sex. I didn't even talk about kissing or anything, right? Like, but I guarantee you, if that's happening and your male partner says, that's wrong. I think it's cheating, right? Can you please stop that? You're at least going to have a conversation about that. And you're making a choice. If you continue to do that behavior when you know that your partner feels that's cheating, then the question comes up, are you hurting this person on purpose? Right? So if your partner has a zero tolerance policy for porn and you continue using porn, lying about it, and doing it in secrecy, and then you're choosing to hurt that person, right? So in that regard, if your partner considers it cheating, it's probably cheating.
But should that person, just devil's advocate, should that person have that zero tolerance for pornography, the partner? Is that healthy?
It really depends on, because we can't reprogram people's like instinctual feelings and personalities and stuff like that, right? We can't. So saying that it's wrong for someone to have a zero tolerance policy for porn, we can't determine that. And the person that you're saying that to, you should not have a zero tolerance policy for porn, they can't change that either. It's like it's programmed in there, right?
Right.
It's like the fight, flight, or freeze thing, right? Like,
right. It's the visceral reaction that they get when they think about their partner viewing pornography.
Yeah. Like, we can't change that. It is. It already exists, right? And so, that's what I talk about is, are you hurting this person on purpose? Is that what you intend on doing, right? And so, like, to me, it really doesn't matter whether it's like cheating or not. Like, it matters that you're not communicating and you're not trying to come to a negotiated agreement, right? Like, you're like, this, I'm over here and she's over here, and we're never going to take steps towards each other. Right. That's what the problem is. Yeah. Right? Because and we've said this in other podcasts, like, we don't care if somebody comes and tells us that they're looking at porn. If it's not a problem for either one of them, then we don't care about that.
Right. They're not coming to see us.
Right. Or they're coming to see us about something else.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's true. About a different issue. Right. We do counseling on other issues other than sex therapy.
Right. Well, like, they might be having like a desire discrepancy, or, but they're fine. They don't care about the porn, right? Or they might have, the female might have pain upon penetration. Like, there's lots of other issues that people can come for sex therapy for, other than just porn. Right. But if porn is not an issue in their relationship, then it's not an issue. I have a couple that I see that where porn is a part of their relationship, they both look at porn individually, separately, right? And they know, and they don't care, right? So that's not why they're coming. And so I just wanted to point that out. Like, this is not a necessarily like porn bad, stop, right? The podcast. It's a how do we get couples to talk about and negotiate and work out differences in communication style, differences in philosophy, and all those kinds of things like that. Right. Where when they don't communicate, then that's going to lead to problems.
Right. And finding the common ground. Well, and it seems like, all the things we've talked about leads towards what direction, I suppose, the energy is going. If, like you said, if you're on two different islands and the guys that come in to watch pornography and they're cuddled up in their island and all the energy is within themselves, for them, for their porn, for their sexual gratification, whatever, like, then how much of that energy is going to your partner? And I feel like that maybe is the crux of the cheating or not thing, is like what direction the energy is going, and within the bounds or within the definition of the relationship that you've created. Because there's, if you've agreed upon this amount of energy going to other people, and, like, say, for example, open relationships, you agree on what energy, then fine. And if you're both okay with that, cool. But if it's in a monogamous relationship, and as the guy, your energy, a lot of it's going outward, generally that's not okay, at least for the guys that come into our office,
Right. Like, and that brings up a good point, that when, that directing that energy outward away from the relationship, because I talked earlier about, a lot of guys look at porn because they're stressed or they're bored or they're lonely or they don't feel affirmed. Well, tell your partner that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Talk to your partner and tell them how you're feeling. And then you may not want to look at porn, or you may not need to look at porn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you're getting those you're getting those needs met in your relationship rather than by yourself.
Right.
Right? Because in the example that I used about, if a woman is talking to a male at work and going for walks and all this kind of stuff, the reason that we feel that that's cheating is because she's directing that energy away from the relationship and into somebody else, which is what's happening during porn.
Right. Exactly. It's not a real person, but it's still an object of your energy or desire, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, and that's like often we'll tell our guys to personify the pornography and pretend it's that's taking away that person, that thing is taking away energy from your relationship or whatever. Would you allow that to happen with an actual person? I mean, we'll talk about more other types of sexual behaviors in future episodes, but specifically with porn, would you allow that from someone else, from an actual person to do that,
Yeah. I refer to it like a stalker ex-girlfriend, right?
I
just won't leave you alone. And would you tolerate that if somebody was like constantly communicating with you and hiding on Instagram and,
Exactly. And just popping up whenever.
Yeah, exactly. Knocking on your
door. For sure. Yeah. I mean, so that's specifically the porn, but I think I'm excited to get into some of the other ones, especially like sexual fantasies. That's another whole conversation that we'll have about like, guys will often feel very guilty about some of the thoughts that they have, the sexual fantasies and stuff. And I won't get into it too much, but I'm excited about all of that stuff. And then moving towards, after an infidelity has happened, because we have a bunch of clients that come to us at that point in their relationship. What are the things that you can do to heal and hopefully repair the sexual relationship? You know what I mean? I'm excited. Should be good.
There's lots to talk about.
Yeah, tons. But today about porn and cheating, any other thoughts that come to your head before we end the episode today?
I think the idea of like, don't give up. Like, don't think it can't get better, because it can, right? And whatever getting better means to you, right? You're not going to be, or you don't have to be stuck in this for the rest of your life, right? Like you can get your needs met in your relationship, and you should, and there's help out there, and so don't. Because to me, that's the saddest part of our work, is when somebody stops coming to therapy because they're like, I'm going to have to struggle with this for the rest of my life. You don't have to live like that.
They're resigned. Yeah, for sure.
Or they just get a divorce or, break up. And I'm like, you can break up with this partner, but you're still going to have this problem, right? Like it's...
Yep, definitely.
Because you're the common denominator.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, my message would be like to the guys. I feel like, it's part of the work. It's like putting yourself in your partner's shoes. We talked about, you gave a couple examples of like, let's flip the script. Like, what if your partner was doing some of these things? Like, I think it's, and not in a way to like shame, like now feel trash about yourself and think you're a bad partner. That's not the point. The point is like, the empathy. You need to bring yourself out of yourself, bring that energy out of like, okay, what would I do if the roles were reversed, or if my partner started expending this energy elsewhere? Like, okay, how would I feel about that? And that's a way to expand those conversations that you're having with your partner, to empathize with them. Like, hey, I know that you probably feel like I'm ignoring you. Like, I'm sorry, that's not what I want to do, or whatever. So my challenge to our guys would be to trying to think outside yourself and put yourself in your partner's shoes. I feel like that's a good strategy to have in this situation. But
excellent. Yep, I love that.
Sweet. All right, thanks. See you next time.
All right.
The Wet Dreamz Podcast and any content posted is intended for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes only. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional, diagnosis, or treatment. Listeners should not disregard or delay in obtaining a medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.